Pages and walkie-talkies, these are the devices that have been used to cause explosions, deadly explosions right across Lebanon. Dozens of people have been killed, hundreds more injured in the latest round of attacks, and it marks a new era in the war in the Middle East. To help us break down what's actually happening here and how is Jennifer Parker from ANU's National Security College. Thanks so much for your time. This is baffling, and this is something that I think induces a threat of fear through all of us. These everyday devices, pages, walkie-talkies, even solar panels can explode. Jennifer, can you explain to us perhaps the mechanics of how it can happen?
Yeah, look, Laura, thanks for having me on. Look, it's not exactly clear what's happened here, except for the fact that clearly an organisation has obviously tampered with these devices. Devices don't just explode like this, and they certainly don't just explode in coordination. It does look like the supply chain, that have supplied these pages, these radios, these other devices to Hezbollah has been intercepted, and most likely intercepted by Israel, although Israel notably has not claimed responsibility for these explosions, but they don't tend to in these circumstances. Clearly, these devices have been tampered with a small explosive charge placed in them. And you can see from the devastation that they have caused that it's not simply just an exploding battery. It really does raise questions about things like supply chain security, which is something that kind of came up during COVID for Australia and is something that Australia needs to be thinking about. Of course, we're not at the threat of this kind of thing, but it is important to understand where your supply chains come from and who is intercepting them. And Hezbollah is learning that lesson right now.
Yes, so let's talk about supply chain security exactly, because we're talking about apparently some of these devices owned by a firm in Hungary, but then there could have been some intervention along the way. So when you talk about supply chain security, you're talking about how imports are actually delivered and what countries they're going through?
I'm talking about when you're importing some of this sensitive stuff, where it's coming from and who has hands on it along the way. You know, we know in a globalized world, we have capabilities and components of things coming from all different countries. But in the case of the pages and the radios used by Hezbollah, it's not clear whether they were interfered with on their way to Lebanon or whilst in Lebanon. So there's been all sorts of different reporting, but I'm not sure that anyone knows. And it must be causing a degree of paranoia, significant paranoia within Lebanon and Hezbollah at the moment, thinking, how has their procurement process been accessed by, probably Mossad, but we don't know. They haven't claimed responsibility. And just how infiltrated is their organisation? Because these attacks are clearly designed to disable the command and control of Hezbollah and to create a degree of paranoia, impact the morale of the personnel within Hezbollah, and create that mass confusion. And this has actually come aligned with comments from the defence minister in Israel that they are moving their 98th Division, which is commandos and paratroopers and some artillery, to the north. So they're repositioning it from Gaza to the north to get ready for what has been called by Israel a new phase of the conflict. And we do know that...
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Let me ask you just strategically why Mossad, Israel, would be using these devices to target Hezbollah in Lebanon. Why wouldn't they have considered using this to target Hamas leaders in Gaza, or if those Hamas leaders have gone elsewhere?
Look, I'm sure they probably considered it. A lot of this really relies on how much you have infiltrated the command and control organisation and how much intelligence you have. So clearly, whoever has done this, and it is likely Israel, has infiltrated Hezbollah's command and control. They understand and have the intelligence on this. They may not have had that for Hamas. So it's potentially a different context. But also it just goes to show that Israel's been under a lot of pressure. They have had to evacuate about 60,000 civilians from the northern border because of the constant shelling from Hezbollah since the 8th of October. And they've been under a lot of internal pressure about the war in Gaza, and about relocating these civilians back to their homes. So this is clearly part of a phase of pushing Hezbollah back from the border to get these civilians back into their homes. But I think there's a lot more to come on this.
Jennifer, just quickly, we shouldn't be worried about exploding devices?
No, we should not be worried in Australia about exploding devices. This is clearly an interception of supply chain and a charge placed in it. We should be worried, though, given the tensions in our region, about supply chain security. And this is just another example of why it's important.
Jennifer, thanks so much. Illuminating.
Thanks, Laura.